The murder of Abel. In the quiet beginnings of the world, long ago, there lived two brothers. Their names were Cain and Abel. They were the first children born to a man and a woman named Adam and Eve. Cain was the elder, and he was a farmer. He grew crops and worked the earth. Abel was younger, and he took care of animals. He looked after sheep and tended to his flock. The brothers lived in a simple world, filled with gentle sunlight and soft breezes. The land was new and fresh, and the animals roamed freely. Each day, Cain and Abel went about their tasks quietly, working with care. They both loved their families, though they were different in many ways. One day it came time to bring offerings. Cain took some of the fruits and grains he had grown. He gathered the best of his harvest to present. Abel chose from his animals, picking one young and healthy to offer. Each gave his gift with the hope and respect held softly in their hearts. The story tells us that God noticed Abel's gift and accepted it. Cain's gift, however, was not accepted in the same way. It is not entirely clear why this was so. Some say it was about the heart behind the offering, others about the gifts themselves. But what matters gently here is that Cain experienced a deep feeling of sadness and anger. Cain's face darkened, and his heart grew heavy. In that stillness, a quiet whisper came, a gentle voice reminding him to do what was right and kind. Though Cain struggled, he was told that feelings, even strong ones, could be managed with care. The story invites us to imagine Cain's breathing slowing, trying to calm the storm within. But the sadness and anger did not pass quickly. Days or maybe moments later, Cain spoke to Abel. What they said to each other is not completely known. We only sense tension between them, a sudden shadow crossing their once peaceful time. Out in the fields, where the sun cast long shadows on the growing grass, the next moments came quietly, yet forever changed the world. Cain rose up against his brother Abel. The simplest words would tell us Cain's jealousy and anger overflowed in a way no one expected. The action itself is described just briefly, a sharp moment that ended Abel's life. The earth around them stood silently as if holding its breath. Abel, who had cared for the sheep, now was still. The peaceful field was touched by sorrow. Cain looked at what he had done. There was a flicker of fear, a soft trembling feeling inside. He wondered what would happen next. Perhaps he remembered the gentle voice from earlier, the quiet advice to choose kindness. But now it was too late. Silence settled over him, like a thick blanket. God asked Cain gently, "Where is your brother?" It's a question filled with concern, more than accusation. Cain, trying to hide the truth, answered softly, "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" Their meaning is deep and filled with uncertainty. Cain knew. The silence held everything. Then God said something to Cain, words about what had happened and what would come after. God told Cain he would be restless, wandering the earth. But also there was a kind protection, a quiet promise not to let harm come to him. And so Cain left, moving away to a land called Nod, which means wanderer. The story gently tells us of this first sadness and of a family changed forever. But it also whispers of hope and the fragile nature of human hearts. As we settle, just like Cain stepping softly away, we pause. The tale is still unfolding, carrying with it quiet lessons about feelings and choices, about sorrow and the unknown that follows. The night settles now, embracing the earth and the past. With slow, steady breaths, we hold this story gently, ready to listen again when the morning light comes. In the quiet aftermath of Cain's exile, the world seemed to hold its breath. The fields where the brothers once toiled and walked were left untouched, as if the earth itself mourned the loss of Abel and the sorrow carried by Cain. The gentle hum of nature continued, wind rustling through the trees, distant calls of birds, but beneath the surface, a deep stillness lingered, a heaviness born from the breaking of bonds so early in the world's story. Away in the land of Nod, Cain wandered. The soil there was different from the field he had known, more wild, more untamed. It stretched endlessly, dotted with rocks and tangled thorns. This new place was a harsh teacher, demanding respect and humility from the one who walked it. Cain's steps were slow, each one carrying the weight of regret and the sting of loneliness. No longer did he hear the laughter of his brother. No longer did he see the flicker of Abel's lively eyes. The memory of his brother's gentle smile haunted him, a constant reminder of what had been lost. The nights were long and merciless, the stars above both distant and unblinking. as if watching silently over the castaway. In time, Cain made a small home among the wild grasses and stones. He learned to till the unyielding soil, to carve out a life from the wilderness that stretched before him. It was a life marked by solitude, but also by a strange kind of endurance. Each day was a labor of survival and reflection. He remembered the words spoken to him after his deed, the promise of protection, and though he felt cursed, he also felt guarded, a fragile shield against the dangers of this unfamiliar land. As seasons passed, the landscape shifted. Rain softened the earth, coaxing seeds to sprout. The sun warmed the growing shoots that surrounded Cain's humble dwelling. In these small signs of life, Cain found a mirror for his own restless heart. Despite the barrenness he had been thrust into, there was still the possibility of growth, of change. It was in this place that Cain's story expanded beyond his own solitude. From the distant horizons, others came, people who also journeyed through this early world, children, families, communities, shaped by the very beginnings of humankind. Though Cain remained apart, cautious and watchful, he was no longer completely alone in the world. The presence of others brought a quiet hope, a sense that even in exile, connection was possible, and that life could persist beyond pain. In these new companions, Cain saw reflections of himself, flawed, struggling, seeking their place. It reminded him that human hearts are complex, woven with both darkness and light. While his own path was marked by sorrow and consequence, he also glimpsed the enduring capacity for change and forgiveness, even if it would take time. Back in the land where Adam and Eve dwelt, the memory of that first family tragedy shaped all who came after. The story of Cain and Abel became a lesson carefully passed down, a caution about the dangers of envy and anger, yes, but more profoundly about the power of choice. Every person, it was taught, carries within them the responsibility for their actions, the seed of kindness or harm. The siblings' tale was a mirror held up to the human spirit, fragile yet resilient. Through the generations, parents spoke softly to their children beneath the evening sky about the importance of guarding one's heart, treating others with respect, and seeking peace. The story's echo was gentle but strong, whispering truths about the cost of anger left unchecked, and the healing that could come from humility and forgiveness. As the world grew and life unfolded in countless forms, the story of Cain and Abel remained a quiet thread woven through human memory. It was a reminder that sorrow touches all families, but that with sorrow comes the choice, to be consumed by grief and bitterness, or to find a path toward understanding and renewal. Even in Cain's exile, a fragile hope endured. The restless wanderer continued his journey, carrying the weight of his past, but also the faint, persistent promise of redemption. Where his path might lead was unknown, but the story whispered that no single moment, no single failure, defined a person's entire existence. In the gentle flow of time, wounds soften and new beginnings find their way. This ancient story lingers like a soft wind, reminding all who listen that though the human heart can falter, it can also heal. And in that healing, there is a kind of grace, quiet, unassuming, and eternal. Thus, the tale of Cain and Abel closes, not with a shout, but with a hush, a gentle reminder of the fragile beauty found in choices made beneath the vast, watchful sky, a quiet invitation to hold kindness close, to listen deeply to the whisper of the world, and to walk with care on the path that unfolds with each new day. Seasons folded into one another, their rhythms guiding the earth as patiently as a steady hand. Cain moved through this passage of time, much like the land itself, sometimes barren and silent, sometimes bursting with fragile green shoots of hope. While the memory of Abel's laughter lingered in the air like an echo, it was the faces of others, travelers, families, strangers, that began to fill the wilderness around Cain's footsteps. These were not always easy encounters. Some looked upon Cain with suspicion, recalling the shame of his past. Others, with weary eyes, bore their own stories of loss, hardship, and survival. Yet in their company, Cain felt a subtle warmth, a glimpse of belonging that touched something deep within. In these shared spaces between silence and speech, Cain learned again the language of human complexity. He saw that anger was not simply a poison that destroyed, but also a fire that might forge strength and resolution. Bitterness could harden a heart, yes, but it could also reveal where pain had been left unhealed. Watching others navigate their struggles, Cain recognized that forgiveness was not an easy path, and yet it was one lined with the possibility of renewal. The tale of Cain and Abel spread among these communities like a whispered caution, passed from mouth to ear at evening fires. It became more than the story of two brothers. It was a living lesson, cradling within it the fragile threads of human nature. Envy that could rise like a storm, anger sharp as a blade, responsibility heavy as stone. Yet beyond these shadows it offered light, the strength to rise after falling, the choice to tread differently, the courage to seek peace. As new generations grew amid these lands, their children listened with eyes wide and minds open. The story taught kindness as a shield against the bitterness that might consume a soul. It warned of unchecked anger's dangers, a fire that could raise even the strongest roots. Yet it spoke also of sorrow, not as an end, but as a shared human thread, binding all who grieved into a vast, gentle weaving. Cain, too, became a figure of restless wandering, forever moving through the wilds, as if following the pulse of the earth itself. Though marked by exile, his journey was no longer one of punishment alone. Instead, he carried hope lightly in his steps, the glimmer of redemption not found in words or deeds alone, but in the quiet choice to keep moving forward, to keep seeking. With each dawn's soft light, Cain's heart beat to the slow steadiness of grace. And even as the world around him changed, as forests grew and waters shifted their course, the silent message remained, whispered on the breeze, held deep in the soil, sung softly by the stars above. Life demanded care and kindness. It urged all who listened to walk gently along its path, aware of the fragile beauty and profound power woven in every moment. So in the stillness that followed the telling, the story of Cain and Abel settled not as a final chapter, but as a gentle beginning, a quiet invitation to embrace forgiveness, humility, and the enduring hope that even in the deepest sorrow, the light of kindness can find a way to shine. Seasons continued their quiet rhythm, ribbons of time weaving through the land like gentle threads, mending old wounds in subtle ways. Cain remained a wanderer, roads beneath his feet carrying him forward, each step a quiet pledge to the future. The edges of grief softened here, shaped by the steady pulse of moons and suns. He found himself in a village nestled between rustling woods and a silver river, a place alive with the hum of daily life and the tender interplay of human stories. Children's laughter spilled from dusty lanes, old hands shaped loaves of bread, and eyes met with fleeting smiles, simple gifts of connection. Here, Cain sensed something fragile and precious, the pulse of belonging, even for one who had been branded by sorrow. The villagers, unaware of the full weight Cain carried, offered him shelter beneath humble roofs, broken bread shared without questions, and stories told beside fires that crackled with warmth. Each encounter chipped away at the edges of solitude. Cain listened to tales of mistakes and forgiveness, of families torn and remade, and in these small truths learned that no person's path is defined by a single misstep or shadow. One evening, as the sky deepened into hues of quiet navy, a woman approached Cain by the flickering light of the hearth. Her eyes held a calm wisdom, and her voice was soft as the breeze. She spoke of anger, how it sometimes shields fear, how it can burn and cleanse alike. To forgive, she said gently, is to hold your own wounds with tenderness, so they may heal in time. Her words hovered like gentle feathers, settling in the silent spaces between them. Cain nodded, feeling the weight of her kindness. Forgiveness, he realized, was not a fragile gift, but an act of courage, a way to reclaim strength, to transmute pain without losing humanness. It was an invitation to live fully, to walk the earth unburdened by the slow poison of regret. The village grew quiet as the night embraced the world. Cain stepped outside, the cool air whispering secrets among the leaves. The stars hung low and steady, ancient sentinels witnessing the unending cycle of loss and renewal. He traced constellations, each a story of human struggles etched in light, and for the first time in a long while, he allowed a quiet hope to bloom, small but tenacious. In the days that followed, Cain helped where hands were needed, mending fences, carrying water, sharing tales from distant roads. His name lost its sharp edge, softened by actions more than words. Children began to gather around him, curious and unafraid, eager for stories that intertwined sorrow and joy, anger and grace. Through these shared moments, Cain found a new melody in life's song. As the village prepared for the changing season, a festival of lights to honor both past sorrows and future hopes. Cain stood among the gathered faces, feeling the hum of thousands of heartbeats tied by shared experience. The story of Abel, once a secret shadow, became a thread woven into the communal fabric, a reminder of the depths of human emotion and the arduous path toward healing. An elder recounted the tale, not as a story of shame, but as one of warning and compassion. The children listened, eyes wide with wonder and understanding. They learned that anger, if left to fester, could destroy, but if met with kindness and reflection, it could become a force for growth. They understood sorrow as a bond that unites all who have loved and lost. Cain's gaze drifted to a small child clutching a lantern, her face aglow with innocent determination. In that moment, he felt the gentle pulse of something lasting, a legacy not burdened by a single moment of violence, but brightened by the many acts of care that followed. It was a reminder that life's story is never fixed, never solely defined by our darkest choices. As the festival's lights flickered against the night, Cain realized that his journey did not lead to an ending, but to continual beginnings. Each day offered a choice: to embrace forgiveness, to soften anger, to extend kindness even when it was not demanded. This was the path not only to personal redemption, but to a shared humanity. Walking away from the village, past the soft fields and whispering streams, Cain carried these lessons like seeds tucked close to his heart. He was a restless figure moving through time, neither anchored nor adrift, embracing the complex dance of light and shadow within himself and others. He did not seek to erase his past, for it was woven into the fabric of who he was. Instead, he chose to carry it gently, like a lantern illuminating the road for others who might stumble in darkness. Redemption, he understood now, was less about forgetting and more about forgiving, starting anew beneath a vast expanse of sky. And so the story of Cain and Abel, which had once been a mournful echo of loss, became a living narrative of hope, a call to grace, to humility, to kindness. It whispered through generations like a soft breath, inviting all who heard it to embrace the fullness of human life with open arms. In the stillness of the dawn, as light spilled quietly over earth and sky, Cain's footsteps faded into the unfolding day, a quiet testament to the power of transformation. The story did not end there. It continued ever onward, in every heart willing to forgive, to care, and to choose love in the face of sorrow. In the quiet hours of the night after the festival's gentle fading, Cain found himself wandering the soft pathways that threaded through the village. The lingering glow of lantern light flickered faintly against the dew-kissed leaves, and the crisp air carried with it whispered tales from times long past. He breathed deeply, savoring the peace that had settled over the place, a peace that had seemed elusive for much of his life. His footsteps were slow, deliberate, as though each step was a prayer, a careful weaving of the past and present. Within, he carried a newfound calm, a fragile but growing tenderness toward himself. The burden he had borne for so many years now felt less like a chain and more like a quiet reminder, urging him forward along a path he was still learning to walk, with open hands. He paused beneath a towering oak, its strong branches stretching wide, offering shade and shelter. Somewhere deep inside, Cain understood that forgiveness, this radical, trembling forgiveness, was the very root from which new life could sprout, just as a seed pressed into soil might push forth a tender shoot. The story attached to his name was no longer a verdict, but an invitation, a call to live fully with the memory of what had been, but not to be imprisoned by it. He thought of Abel, his brother, his lost companion, and how in the stillness between brothers had once been dreams and laughter. Cain's heart, heavy yet hopeful, held space for sorrow. This space was no longer a dark abyss, but a quiet chamber where grief and love could cohabit without chaos or fear. With morning's gentle light cresting the horizon, the village stirred again. Cain found himself drawn to the center square, where early risers laid out preparations for the day ahead. Children gathered patches of wildflowers, their bright eyes full of innocent wonder. Villagers moved with a steady rhythm, embracing the simple acts of tending, sharing, and repairing. Cain lent his hands freely, fixing fences, gathering firewood, and quietly listening to stories told by elders beneath the shade of fruiting trees. He learned names once spoken in whispers, names of those who had suffered and those who had joyously survived. Every story a thread in a tapestry more vast and intricate than he had imagined. He remembered the elder's words from the festival night, the tale of brothers told not as condemnation but as wisdom. The elder had spoken gently. Anger is a flame, fierce and quick, but with care it may warm rather than consume. Sorrow is a river, deep and long, but it carries the power to cleanse and renew. Growth is the quiet seed that breaks through earth when hope is nurtured and forgiven. These words settled in Cain's spirit like a steady rain, softening the hard places within. The children began to approach him with shy curiosity. A little girl with braids asked about the stars, and Cain found himself tracing patterns in the sky, weaving stories of light and darkness. Others brought him small gifts, smooth stones, a handful of berries, a sprig of rosemary. Each token was an offering, a silent bridge forming between the boy once feared and the man who now listened. Cain's voice opened, steady and low, as he shared from his heart, not shadowed tales of violence, but stories of longing, mistakes, and the tender hope born from trial. The children listened, rapt, perhaps because here was a man unafraid to show his wounds, inviting them to see that all who live carry their own marks, real and unseen. Days blended softly into weeks. Each dawn, Cain greeted the village not as an outsider, but as part of the unfolding story. He helped plant seeds in scattered gardens, tilled soil, and helped harvest ripening fruits. When festival season came again, quieter this time, the light in the village seemed steadier, richer for having been tested. On one clear evening, as the sun dipped beyond rolling hills, Cain walked to a small hill overlooking the village. There, with the wind whispering through tall grasses, he allowed himself a moment to look back and then forward. The journey of forgiveness, he acknowledged, was endless, like a river that curved and split and rejoined, sometimes rushing, sometimes calm. He thought of the faces he had met, the hope in children's eyes, the strength in elders' voices, the laughter shared in simple joys. Life here had become a living testament, not of forgetfulness or denial, but of tender remembrance and the courage to live anew. In the quiet of night, under a sky sprinkled with infinite lights, Cain sang a soft song, a melody not of regret, but of bridging, mending, and belonging. His voice was low but clear, carried lightly on the breeze, a whispered vow to carry his history not as a tombstone, but as a lantern. He knew that though the shadows of the past might never fully vanish, his steps now traced a new way, a winding path illuminated by the gentle glow of forgiveness, kindness, and shared humanity. And as the village slept, gently wrapped in the soothing embrace of night, Cain's story, once shadowed by pain, moved quietly forward, a living thread woven into the fabric of hope, grace, and humility for generations yet to come. With the turning of the seasons, the village settled deeper into the quiet rhythm of its days. The soil, dark and generous, welcomed new seeds beneath the tender hands of its people. Cain moved alongside them, not as an outsider, but as a thread in the vast interwoven fabric of their lives. His steps no longer carried the weight of estrangement, but the gentle assurance of belonging. At dawn he often rose early, greeted by the pale gold of light slipping through the trees. He would walk slowly toward the fields, feeling the damp earth beneath his feet. The cool air whispered stories in the rustling leaves, stories of growth, patience, and resilience. Here, in these moments, his heart found a fragile ease. Hands deep in the soil, Cain felt a connection not simply to the land, but to those who had nurtured it before him. The elders smiled softly when they saw him, offering nods of quiet approval. Their eyes held the wisdom of many seasons, reflections of sorrow and joy intertwined, much like his own path. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the village in a gentle amber glow, Cain sat near the communal fire. The children gathered around him again, their eyes wide with wonder. He told them of stars, how they danced across the velvet sky, eternal guides shining through darkness. His voice was soft, steady like the rhythm of a calm stream, weaving tales of light and shadow, loss and renewal. A little girl, clutching a worn flower she'd found along the path, asked, "Why does the sky sometimes hide the stars, Cain?" He looked up thoughtfully. "Sometimes, even the stars must rest behind clouds. It reminds us that darkness is part of the dance, but it never stays forever. The light always returns." The children nodded, absorbing the quiet comfort in his words. It was in these shared silences and simple stories that trust bloomed, delicate yet enduring. Days flowed into weeks, and the village's pulse grew steady. The festival approached once more, marked not by loud celebrations but by gentle lanterns that illuminated paths and hearts alike. This year, Cain was asked to lead a quiet song, a melody meant to weave together remembrance and hope. As he stood before the gathered villagers, lantern light reflecting in their faces serene and reflective, Cain felt the threads of his journey weaving tightly with theirs. The song rose softly from his lips, a balm for wounds unseen, a prayer carried on the night breeze. He sang of forgiveness, not as forgetting, but as a wellspring allowing pain to transform into a gentle strength. The song invited each listener to hold their own stories with tenderness, their unique lessons unfolding with grace. In the days that followed, the village seemed to glow with a softer light. Conversations carried deeper meanings, hands worked with renewed care, and the past was touched lightly rather than shouldered heavily. Cain watched, a quiet gratitude blooming in his chest. One morning near the river's edge, an elder approached him. "You have carried your history with open hands," she said, voice like the steady flow of water. "That is how healing begins, when we honor every part of our journey, even the pain." Cain looked out over the shimmering water, feeling its steady presence beneath the morning sun. "It is a path I walk still," he answered, "but I no longer fear its length." The elder nodded, a gentle smile bridging experience and hope, "And that is the gift you will give others." As the seasons turned, he learned that forgiveness was not a single act, but a continuous unfolding, a delicate balance between remembering and releasing, between sorrow and the choice to love again. In this unfolding, Cain found himself rooted in a new story. One evening, beneath a sky sprinkled with countless stars, he revisited his soft song, now familiar and dear. The melody wove through the cool air, a whisper that embraced the night's quiet magnitude. In that stillness, Cain recognized a profound truth, that his journey was part of a larger, timeless thread, woven with grace, humility, and unwavering hope. The village rested in peaceful harmony, and Cain felt the steady heartbeat of belonging, an enduring light carried gently forward, illuminating not only his path, but those of all who would come after. With a calm breath, Cain closed his eyes and listened to the stars. In their silent brilliance, he found the promise of endless tomorrows, where sorrow and love held hands, and the story of Abel lived on, soft, enduring, and full of quiet, radiant hope. Under the vast canopy of stars, Cain sat quietly, his breath mingling with the cool night air. The village, nestled softly around him, fell into a peaceful hush. In these moments between dusk and dawn, he felt the weight of the past settle gently, no longer a chain but a thread woven into the fabric of his story. The children had gone to their homes, their small whispers of thanks lingering like a warm embrace. Cain's voice had carried hope to them, tender yet unyielding, like the earth that breathes beneath their feet. He thought of those young faces, the new generation who would carry forward lessons of resilience and forgiveness with fresh hearts. A flickering lantern nearby cast soft shadows on the stone path. The village elders sat around a low fire, their eyes reflecting the flames and the quiet pride in Cain's growth. One elder, a woman whose silver hair shimmered like moonlight, approached him with a gentle smile. "You carry your story with honor now," she said softly. "Your willingness to face the darkness and to sing of light despite it, that is strength. Not all find this path." Cain nodded, the ember's warmth kissing his skin. "I have learned that darkness is not an end, but part of the journey. Like the night that falls so stars can be seen." She reached out, placing a weathered hand over his. "And the stars, they guide us, as you guide these children. Remember, Cain, healing is never a destination, but the road itself." Her words settled deep within him, steady and sure, a quiet assurance that echoed in his heart. The village elders had taught him patience, humility, and the sacred rhythms of the land. Tonight their silent acknowledgement was a gift beyond measure. The night deepened, wrapping the village in a soft, velvety silence. Cain's thoughts drifted to Abel, his brother. A sigh escaped, more a breath of sorrow embraced than pain endured. Abel's presence lingered within him not as guilt or rage, but as remembrance, an aching harmony in their shared story. He lifted his gaze to the stars, those distant fires burning with the same ancient energies that had witnessed all their days. There in their quiet brilliance, Cain glimpsed a promise, not of forgetting the past, but of tearing it gently, with eyes open to the dawn that always follows night. The festivity had passed, leaving behind a tender stillness, a collective pause in which the village exhaled old burdens. Cain found himself walking toward the hill that overlooked their homes, a place where the earth felt sacred and the sky stretched infinite. He sat among the wild grass, fingers brushing softly over the cool stones beneath him. The earth hummed beneath, steady, enduring, and in that steadiness Cain rooted himself. Forgiveness, he knew now, was not a sudden dawn, but a slow, unfolding day, a choice he would make again and again, even when shadows beckoned. A gentle wind carried whispers of the village's water, a river winding through their lives as surely as their shared stories wound through time. Cain thought of the children's laughter in the fields, the elders' quiet conversations by the firelight, the gentle songs that rose like prayers into the night. Light, darkness, life, death, they wove together as one tapestry, neither erased, each held sacred. He closed his eyes, feeling the pulse of the land beneath the stars. Here in this moment, Cain understood the fullness of his journey. The night sky did not promise safety from storm, but the enduring strength to stand beneath it and find beauty in the stars. In his heart he carried Abel, no longer as a shadow or a wound, but as a part of the whole. Brother, companion, echo, the village, the land, the stars, the children, they were all threads in the same vast story. And in that story Cain found peace. A soft rustling nearby drew his attention. A child, hesitant, stepped toward him. Eyes bright with curiosity, she offered him a small wildflower. "For your dreams," she said simply. Cain's smile was gentle, a quiet blessing, accepting the flower as a symbol of new beginnings. The child bounded back toward the village, her footsteps light with hope. Cain remained seated, watching the first faint glimmers of dawn push through the night. The song of remembrance and hope had been sung, the story of the brothers, of pain, loss, and ultimately forgiveness, would live on in whispered tales by firelight and gentle lessons in the fields. With the coming dawn, the village stirred. Life in all its enduring cycles moved forward, the ancient dance of light and shadow, sorrow and joy. And Cain, no longer defined by a past that had threatened to break him, embraced the gift of belonging, the promise of love that never fades. He breathed deeply once more, sending his gratitude to the stars above, to the land beneath, and to the hearts around him. In the soft glow of morning, the legacy of love endured, timeless, steadfast, and whole. The first light of morning softened the edges of the world, casting a tender glow upon Cain's stillness atop the sacred hill. The village stirred gently below, unfolding like a warm breath after the cool night. Birds began their quiet songs, a gentle chorus that seemed to echo the heartbeats of those waking to a new day. Cain breathed deeply, the freshness of dawn filling his lungs with a silent promise. Here, above all things, he felt the subtle pulse of life, the slow churning of days, the steady rhythm of the earth beneath him, and the infinite patience of the sky. The wildflower lingered in his hand, its simple beauty a reminder of the fragile strength woven into every moment. He thought of Abel again, not as the shadow of loss or regret, but as the quiet harmony woven into the fabric of his being. Abel was the laughter carried on the wind, the gentle rustle of leaves, the flame that had lit paths in the deepest darkness. To carry such a memory was no burden. It was a sacred song that breathed life into night and day alike. The village below was waking, its people moving with gentle purpose. Mothers weaving cloth by the fireside, elders tending the earth, children chasing one another with unbridled joy. A stream of golden light filtered between the branches, dappling the ground in patches of warmth and cooling shade. Cain felt the steady pulse of community, a web of connection that held pain and joy together, like the threads of a tapestry both delicate and unbreakable. Forgiveness, he understood now, was not a single act, but the quiet unfolding of 1,000 tiny moments, each one a choice to let go, to breathe, to be present in the fullness of life's complexity. It was the stillness within the storm, the calm beneath the thunder, the gentle space where love could take root again. And within that space, Cain found a restless peace, a grace that would carry him forward, even when the night was long and stars hidden behind heavy clouds. He remembered the elder's words, soft and steady, like a rock shaped by water. Healing is not a destination, but a path walked step by step, breath by breath. It was a journey without an end, a circle turning always onward, passing through shadow and light, sorrow and joy, death and new life. This was the dance of existence, the story written in earth and sky, seed and stone. Cain looked toward the horizon, where the sun now rose in a gentle arc, spilling golden hues across the fields. The village, his home, was alive with quiet movement and unspoken understanding. There was no rush, no need to fix or force. Everything could unfold in its own time. Grief, love, forgiveness, hope. A breeze rose softly, carrying the scent of earth and wildflowers, of rain yet to come, and stories yet to be told. Cain closed his eyes and listened. To the hum of life, the breathing of the world, the endless whisper of stars and soil entwined. In this moment, he felt the weight and the lightness of being, of holding the past tenderly, without fear, like a flame cradled in steady hands. The wildflower in his palm, fragile and bright, seemed to pulse with quiet life. It was a token of beginnings and endings, of paths converging and diverging. It spoke of the unbroken thread connecting all who had come before, all who walked beside him, and those who would follow when he was gone. Cain stood slowly, the earth steady beneath his feet, the dawn casting long shadows behind him. His heart beat in rhythm with the world, an echo of creation's timeless song. The village below whispered promises of laughter and tears, work and rest, sorrow and joy, an eternal river flowing through every generation. He began to walk down the hill, carrying not only the memory of Abel, but the light of countless days yet to come. The wildflower pressed gently against his palm, a reminder that life, though fragile, was endlessly resilient. He moved with the quiet certainty of one who has touched both darkness and light, and chosen to keep walking forward. There was peace here, tender, imperfect, alive, and in that peace, Cain found himself not alone, but part of everything. The story of Abel and Cain, of loss and forgiveness, of shadow and dawn, was not only an ending but a beginning, an unbroken circle that wove through the heart of time itself. The village called softly in the morning air, and Cain answered, stepping into the day with open eyes, an open heart, and the enduring grace of love held gently within him. As Cain walked down the dusty path, the village life thrummed steadily around him. Each measured step seemed to echo a rhythm older than memory. His fingers brushed against the wildflower nestled safely in his palm, a fragile vessel carrying the weight of remembrance and the lightness of hope. The petals, delicate yet unwavering, whispered of life's quiet persistence, even after loss. He thought of Abel, not as a shadow cast by sorrow, but as sunlight breaking through the canopy, illuminating paths not yet taken. Abel's laughter, the softness of his presence amidst the fields and flocks, was a song he carried within, woven into the melody of his own breath. At the market square, voices mingled, ancient as the stones beneath their feet, carrying stories of toil and triumph. Children darted between stalls, their boundless joy a balm to weary hearts. Cain watched as a girl plucked a ripe fig, its sweetness whispering of nature's generosity, of days ripened in patient quiet. The elder's words brushed through Cain's mind once more. Healing is a journey with no appointed end, a river that bends and flows, sometimes still, sometimes swift. Forgiveness was not a single bloom, but a garden tended day by day. It was in the deliberate turning toward compassion, the choice to release bitterness like fallen leaves in the wind. The sun ascended steadily, painting the sky in hues of amber and rose. Cain inhaled deeply, the crisp air filled with the scent of earth and dew, mingling with a resonance that stirred his spirit, a gentle invitation to embrace the unfolding moment without resistance. A breeze stirred the strands of his hair, carrying with it faint traces of distant rain, of pine and wild grasses. It seemed a chorus of unseen voices, the ancestors who had walked this land before him, their footsteps a soft cadence beneath his own. He found himself pausing beside a quiet brook, the water's surface glinting with sunlight like shards of silver. The gentle babble spoke of continuity, the endless dance of beginnings and endings. Time's passage was neither cruel nor kind. It simply was, and within it lay the possibility of renewal. Cain settled on a smooth stone, cradling the wildflower, its stem slender yet steadfast. He thought of Abel's eyes, bright with innocence and the promise of unbroken dreams. A smile brushed his lips, not of sorrow, but of gratitude for a bond that transcended the finality of death. Forgiveness unfolded in the spaces between breaths. It was the soft murmur beneath pain, a quiet pulse that promised life beyond rupture. With every remembered kindness, every shared sunrise, the act of forgiving wove a tapestry that stretched beyond him, reaching into the future like the branches of an ancient oak. As shadows lengthened and the village lights flickered on, Cain rose and turned toward home. The evening air was cool, alive with the scent of lavender and crushed leaves. The sky deepened to a velvet blue, scattered with the first stars, the silent witnesses to countless stories whispered into the night. Within Cain stirred a profound peace, an anchoring calm that balanced loss and hope. The past, though marked by tragedy, was not a cage but a foundation, a story etched into the landscape of his soul, shaping the man he was becoming. The wildflower remained tucked gently in his hand, a symbol of fragile strength, resilience, and the enduring nature of memory. It was a reminder that life's beauty and pain were intertwined threads, each giving meaning to the other. He stepped softly through the quiet streets, embraced by a warmth that was neither heat nor light alone, but a gift born of acceptance and grace. In this stillness, Cain understood that to forgive was to open a door, the threshold where love and loss met, releasing the heart to soar free once more. As he reached his doorway, he paused for a moment, gazing upward at the constellation of stars. Their eternal sparkle held promise, a silent oath that though the night may be deep, dawn would always break again, carrying not only the memory of Abel, but the gentle hope that tomorrow's light would bring healing, understanding, and the chance to begin anew. And so with a heart both tender and strong, he closed the door behind him, stepping forward into the quiet embrace of night, where all stories find their rest, and all souls their peace. The night deepened its velvet cloak, wrapping the world in a tender hush. Cain stood at his window, the cool air carrying the scent of earth and whispering leaves inside his small dwelling. Beyond the glass, the stars winked softly, distant yet deeply present, as if sharing the quiet comfort of eternity. He traced their scattered patterns with his fingertips, feeling himself part of something vast, unending. Inside, the flicker of a single candle cast gentle shadows, faint guardians against the darkness. The flame danced like a small heartbeat, steady and sure. Cain breathed in rhythm with the subtle pulse, a reminder that life, fragile and persistent, continued to unfold, even after the deepest sorrow. His thoughts wandered along familiar paths, and then veered into new territories. Abel's face arose in the quiet theater of memory, not as a shadow of grief, but as light spilling into corners once closed. The wildflower he held earlier was still vivid in his mind, a delicate emblem of endurance amidst the relentless cycles of pain and healing. Cain moved to the hearth, where embers lingered like warm coals of remembrance. He sat close, feeling the gentle heat seep through his bones, a balm against the cool night. In this stillness, he embraced a truth that had been hard-won. Forgiveness is not a forgetting, but a gentle release, a soft exhale after years of holding breath. Outside, the wind whispered through the trees, an ancient song carrying echoes of ancestors who had walked similar paths. Cain closed his eyes, seeking not escape, but connection. The sound was a thread weaving between him and the earth, joining past and present in a quiet vow, a promise that no story truly ends, but continues to echo through those who choose to listen. Memories came like gentle ripples, simple moments shared with Abel, the warmth of his laughter, the kindness in his eyes. These recollections did not sting, they comforted. They were gifts, timeless treasures preserved in the garden of Cain's heart. Slowly a calm certainty took root. Healing, Cain understood, was not a linear journey, but a mosaic of small awakenings. Each day offered a new tile, sometimes bright, sometimes shadowed, all part of a greater picture forming with patience and care. The market square, vibrant with life, remained luminous in his mind's eye. Children's laughter, the rustle of leaves, the vibrant colors of fruits and cloth, all these whispered of resilience, of life's relentless pulse. The world did not forget, nor did it cease to offer avenues for grace. Cain rose and walked quietly to his table, where a small sprig of lavender lay pressed beneath a worn stone. He touched it softly as if greeting an old friend, and smiled. This simple plant, humble and fragrant, embodied the very spirit he sought, a willingness to grow even after harsh winters, to release fragrant beauty despite adversity. The night deepened further, but instead of fear or solitude, Cain felt a profound companionship with the universe. Every star, every rustling leaf, was a verse in the cosmic song of existence. Even in the wake of loss, the melody persisted, inviting him to add his own note of hope. He reached for his writing materials, feeling the familiar weight of the pen. Words had been his refuge and his bridge, a means to navigate the inner seas stirred by Abel's story. Tonight, with steady hands and a quiet heart, Cain began to write anew, not of sorrow nor of blame, but of renewal, the quiet strength found in acceptance and the brave hope of new beginnings. Outside, the first whisper of dawn brushed the horizon, faint but sure. Cain knew that with morning would come fresh opportunities to live, to forgive again, to nourish the seeds of peace he had planted within. He welcomed the fragile light, cradling it like a promise made not only to himself, but to the memory of his brother. The candle flickered once, then held firm. The stars slowly faded, but their light lingered in his soul. Cain breathed deeply, gratitude blossoming quietly, an eternal spring in the garden of his heart. And so as the earth turned gently beneath the waking sun, Cain sat in the calm embrace of a new day, carrying both his history and his hope forward. The story of Abel lived in him, not as a burden, but as a gentle guide, leading him step by step into the quiet peace of forgiveness and the boundless possibility of tomorrow. The dawn's light brushed gently against the window frame as Cain sat quietly, a steady rhythm in the soft breaking of a new day. The earlier flicker of the candle's flame, once delicate and wavering, now seemed to burn with a clearer, steadier glow, an expression of the calm steadiness he sought within himself. Outside, the world roused slowly. The birds began their early song, not in haste but in measured melodies that floated lightly on the cool morning air. Cain allowed himself to listen, to feel the gentle pulse of awakening life that ebbed and flowed just beyond his window. He thought again of Abel, not as a shadow that haunted the corners of his mind, but as a presence that had quietly traveled alongside him, soft, steadfast, a companion in moments both lost and found. There was no need for loud declarations or dramatic remembrance. Abel's essence was in the small things, the softest memory of laughter, the faintest trace of shared silence. These were enough. A faint breeze slipped through the slightly open window, ruffling the pages of the notebook beside him. Cain's fingers brushed lightly over the worn edges, a tactile connection to the narrative he was still shaping. A story not solely about loss, but about the delicate architecture of recovery. He understood now that healing's journey was not a linear one. It folded upon itself in quiet layers, each moment of tenderness a tile in a mosaic that shimmered with unexpected colors, sometimes bright, sometimes muted, but always part of a whole. There was a gentle clarity in this realization that time, patience, and self-kindness were a trinity in the art of renewal. And forgiveness, a soft thread, weaving through the fabric of his being, neither erasing nor denying past wounds, but gently easing their edges until they no longer cut so deeply. The market square, with its lively hum from the previous day, had settled into a rhythmic breathing. Shops opening, familiar faces greeting one another with nods and warm smiles. This steady pulse of everyday life wove itself into Cain's consciousness, a reminder of the ongoing dance between struggle and survival. Beneath a tree outside, a cluster of lavender swayed in the gentle wind, the same sprig Cain had touched hours before, now basking in the promise of morning light. It was a small symbol, but heavy with meaning, growth that comes through care, beauty that emerges even after hardship, the soft unfolding of resilience. The universe, in its expansive quietude, felt near, a vast presence that held him gently, as if in a shared breath. It was a companionship deeper than words, a cosmic melody that resonated softly, intertwining his story with countless others. Cain's pen found the page once more, gliding smoothly as he wrote carefully of renewal, of acceptance, of hope wrapped in the quiet dignity of everyday living. Words formed not just as records of thought, but as seeds planted in fertile ground, ready to bloom in time. He did not rush. There was no urgency in this act, only the slow, rhythmic dance of creation, mirroring the way the dawn had moved from darkness to light in steady progress. Outside, the day grew brighter. Lights spilled into corners, swept through the streets, and touched the hearts of those awakening to their own stories. Cain's spirit moved gently with the turning world, a silent melody of resilience and peace. And as the morning unfolded, the promise of fresh beginnings whispered softly in the breeze, opportunities to live fully, to forgive deeply, and to nurture the quiet peace that blossomed within. In this stillness, Cain felt the threads of his journey weaving gently onward, no longer bound by sorrow, but carried forward by the steady rhythm of hope's enduring song.